put into place. So they don't have to, oh my goodness, I have nothing now, what do I do?
Is there going to be a way for parents to, and and the general discussion I was going to ask about, updates on the surveys and stuff you've been working on, but is there a way that you can kind of understand from the parent's perspective what might work best for them, or how are we?
We are working on a
this?
survey. The PDC is the group that I'm working at, the Professional Development Council. We're working on pros and cons for this. We're working on specifics of days, times, how does that look? We're working on a survey for parents so that we determine what their needs are, where can we help, what are the constraints, and we've got some other outreach that I've already talked to some groups that would be able to provide some opportunities for students and younger and older kids too.
How does this affect the contact hours with the students?
I ran it, I took there's a spreadsheet from KSDE that you input all of your, your start times, stop times, and your work days and all that. And I just took that schedule and put all of our current days and times in there. And then I just plunked in an early release to see how it would affect us. And we were good.
Okay.
So, yeah, and while it's not, it'll be different with a little bit of direct time with students, it'll benefit them because our actual time direct instruction with students will be more quality because we have the information and the knowledge that we were able to meet together and put those things together. So our time with students will be more quality because of our professional learning.
I think as you get some more detail, it'd just be really good to see kind of some examples of what specifically you would do during that early release time, because I struggle with thinking that you're going to do any meaningful activity a few minutes here and a few minutes there. It seems like it's one of those things that a bigger block of time would be far more valuable than several small blocks that added up to the big block. So I'd like to see what would be some examples of the kind of things that would happen, because and how we hold ourselves accountable to that outcome, because I just struggle with 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, how valuable it would be.
Right, and that's what we have now, is that very small snippets of time. Well, you don't have time to go to the bathroom because you've got only 10 minutes left here, and it's hard.
No, I get it.
Part of this, to put something like this into place, there has to be adequate training before we even get there. So I'm looking into providing for our administrative team and our building leadership teams that PLC process to help put all that into place, where you have your norms, you have your schedule, and it has to be very structured, because you can't just say, hey teachers, here's the late start day, go do what you do. It has to be very structured and monitored.
And to be clear, I'm in no way saying that we shouldn't do more and better PD. I just am concerned how much value you get out of this model. But
so I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So who's on the PDC?
The Professional Development Council has 3 representatives from each building, and myself. And then we meet, and you change in and change out folks. So you serve on for a period of time, and then the teachers select who comes on. It's a negotiated committee. So I don't select.
Negotiated by who?
It's in the negotiated agreement. So and part of it is, they determine who serves on that. So it's 3 teachers from each building, and it rotates. So I don't select it. The building principals don't select it. It's selected by teachers. There's a process.
Okay.
There's teachers, and then if there are numerous teachers who are interested in filling a slot, they have an election within their building. So it's a very detailed process.
Okay, so then right now in our district, minus adding more PDC, professional development. So just looking at what we already do, if we have a professional development day, then who is the one in charge of picking what subject area you're focusing on and the agenda for that, and then who monitors how effective that is, and who talks to the teachers to see how effective it was to them?
It's a combination with myself and the administrative team. So it depends on what's needed across the district or the buildings. You know, if there's an initiative coming down from KSDE that we have to put into place, that's the topic for the day. You know, it depends. In some years we've split it. You know, morning was always district time, building was always afternoon time, and every building has different needs. So, but it was really hard. It's hard to meet the needs because you have your English teachers, and then you have your PE teachers, and then you have your career tech ed teachers, and everybody kind of needs something different on those big days like that. But then at this time, if you have a structure into place where you have all of your teachers meeting with their teams working toward the same goals.
So what about like specials teachers? What would be their role on those days? Or some of those that maybe don't need the data to help
Right,
drive their instruction?
but they're still responsible for our graduation rates too. So they would have a spot, and they do now on teams. So you have your title teachers, your special education teachers that attend those teams, and then depending upon your building, like in your middle school right now, their specials teachers attend their grade level teams. So they do participate in that way there. You know, there's a couple different options on how you can structure those, and that's part of that PLC process and training that you would go through to put those together.
So how do we know how effective that was one of my questions. I don't know. If you said an answer, then I missed it. But the current professional development that we do, how do we know how effective it is, like from the teacher's perspective?
Well, and it's hit and miss too, because it's different on every day. Like the things that we did in October, you know, we looked at panorama data. I thought that was valuable, and then each building had different other things that they did. Like elementary staff did like a MANT training to help with students who, you know, are disruptive or out of control. You know, that was the kind of training
All
there.
staff members got MANT trained?
It wasn't a complete MANT training. It was like your day one. So it wasn't the actual holds, and, you know, it was more of the de-escalation techniques in the day one. You know, other buildings that really depended, like the high school was working on map data, middle school we had working on panorama, and then some other vertical teaming. So it varies because every building has different needs. And so
I think what Kai is asking is, after that time, does somebody go to the teacher and say, hey, was that worth it, or should we have spent our time on something else? Or what, was this good, or can you, you know, if we were to do something to improve it, what are some ideas on to improve it? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so at what point does a teacher say, I feel like this professional development was worth my time, or on a scale of 1 to 10, 10, or on a scale of 1 to 10, I learned nothing, this was a waste of my time, and I don't feel like I'm getting the professional development. I don't feel like the district's investing in me to give me the tools to succeed in the classroom.
And I would say that every PD day we have, you're going to have the gamut, because one PD does not fit all. That's why a few years ago we put into place the personalized PD. So we had choices, different choices of things that people could do. Like, you know, we offered reading training, or we had a math teaming, and then we offered, if that doesn't fit you, like I'm a PE health teacher, wow, why should I stay for those? Then there were like 3 other selections. They could visit another school, they could pick out something else to attend if they could find an online thing that they wanted to attend. It was more personalized, and it was good. So it was something we put into place to kind of meet everybody's needs. And on big full days like that, I could see those still, you know, we still have that existing. It's not pushed as much as it used to be because of COVID, you know, and going out and visiting and teaming with other districts has, you know, scaled back quite a bit. But, you know, yeah, that is something that's concerning too. We always work toward trying to find a perfect PD for everybody, but there's always going to be somebody who says this was not worth my time.
Right.
But
well, and that's fine. It's just the trend is over time, do people feel like the value is increasing? But it sounds to me like we aren't currently don't have a process to specifically try to do it. We're assuming that there's some people who are gonna find it valuable and others are not, but we really don't know for sure.
We used
You
to
know.
do surveys after
Okay.
everyone, and that was not helpful for staff. They hated doing the surveys. It
I
was
think
just,
a lot of times just the feedback that staff has with people on the PDC committee is valuable. It's not scientific, it's not a survey, it's just, you know when you have good professional development. I mean, the staff are talking about it, it's just a very positive experience, but you can't please everybody.
I don't
No matter
know
what
that that's
you
the
do.
expectation, it's just, again, are we, getting better at it, or,
Yeah.
is
I think the
this one better
survey
than
is
the
still
last?
a good idea,
Yeah,
though.
I don't
Like the
disagree.
information wasn't valuable. I think it gives the teachers then an opportunity to at least give some kind of feedback and be heard,
Good or bad.
good or bad.
And here's the thing, if you'll know if it was good, because there'll be a pattern of consistent feedback on why it was good.
Right.
And if it wasn't, you'll get a consistent feedback on why.
but these early release days would be different. It wouldn't just be sit and get. It would be teachers actually looking at data, using that to inform their instruction. So they will tie that together. And one example is, I'm looking at my data on these assessments, and wow, it's terrible, but I don't know what to do about it, so I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. Well, that's really not working for us. So why don't we take that data and take the time to visit with our team about it and figure out why. Is our scope and sequence off? Are our unit guides matching up? Why? Why is it that way, and how can we fix it and do better?
So are there no other options to have that PD within the school day? Like a lot of schools have that.
Well, just what I said, before, middle school has kind of a team plan time that they have some time built into their day. High school has once a week late start that has not, it's this amount of time, it's short. Elementary is on a rotational basis where one day they take away their personal plan and they give them this team plan and hurry up in a few minutes and try to figure it out. So it's not equitable, and there's really not time in the day. We've struggled at the elementary for forever on how to find this time and work, and it just hasn't.
Collaborative, would be the PLC part.
Yeah, and this is one idea that we've looked into. We've actually looked into it for several years, and are just now thinking, okay, maybe we can start this and try this, and people are pretty excited.
My only concern is that if you have no gauge of whether your existing professional development is of benefit to the teacher, like from their opinion and from what they utilize then in the classroom. If you have no gauge of that and you have no data to back that up, then if your existing professional development is not working, then giving them more is not helping anybody.
But it's different.
Well, it's not the same thing, and she's
Oh.
always different. So you have professional development where you're going to be taught something. You're going
Right.
to come in, hopefully you'll be given information you haven't had. She's talking about where teachers are sitting together, they're planning, they're looking at data, they're determining if one child should be on a different track than another child. They're looking at those kind of things when you're doing it early
It's
release.
structured work. It's not sit and get.
But a lot of teachers are doing those things anyway within their normal day. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't have something separate, but a lot of teachers are already looking at data, already making those determinations, even if there's an early release or not. Or they should be. They should be.
Should be, but are we providing them adequate time to do that? No. So are they doing it? If they're doing it, they're probably doing it at night
Well,
or
if you're
on
an
the
effective
weekends.
teacher, you should be looking at data to drive your instruction at some point.
Yes, but if you've never been taught how to look at the data or been able to work with your team, then you're just kind of functioning through.
Okay, a lot going on.
Yeah. I'll bring back more information next month.
Very good. Thank you, Connie. With that, brings us to the action item. Action item 5.1, approval of existing gym East Room renovations as Aaron talked about, the refurbishing, the painting, and that sort of thing. Is there any more discussion or questions or motion?
Is this something that has to be determined at this meeting, or is this something that can be done at a later date?
The intent was to try and bring it to get approved now, because they are moving forward with procuring materials and planning for all that work that's getting ready to start next month. So, not to say it couldn't happen later, it just gets harder.
So are those spaces currently usable for those functions? It doesn't sound like they're really.
I mean, they're laminate flooring and pretty just plain Jane rooms. So I mean, it's not like they're unusable, but they're not ideal, I guess.
Yeah, and it was just missed as part of the programming when we did it, because those spaces went away as part of the demo stuff, right? Or
They
no?
weren't
area
going to go
stays.
away, they just weren't necessarily assigned.
They didn't have a home.
Right.
Where is their home right now?
So it's right to the south of the east gym. When you first go through those double doors, it's right to the east.
Nice big closet.
It's an old closet.
And it's becoming the, part,
Literally.
Serious.
Literally.
it's becoming part of the men's bathroom and the janitorial break area.
Okay, so yeah, when it got designed, their space went away and we didn't have included a replacement at that time. So, yeah.
All right, I make a motion to approve item 5.1.
I second it.
All in favor, raise your right hand. 4?
Oh, no, I did. Sorry.
4. All opposed?
I think it's 5-1.
5-1. Brings us to item 5.1A, the green room wall improvement.
Oh, you did.
As Erin give her best description of, and with Mark's help.
I just like saying the word cyclorama.
Right. Any discussion?
I hope that we place an emphasis on making sure, and I know he said that the technology is what it should be, but if we're gonna teach kids with a technology, I hope it's a technology that they could actually take out into the workplace, or when they go to college with it, it's actually comparable to what they would have, or would be a good transition to what they would have in college, so.
I appreciate that. I think that's our goal. This would help, obviously.
All right, I move, oh wait.
5.1A.
5.1, I was like, wait, it's not here. I move to approve 5.1A, so whatever it's called.
The green room wall
Green room
improvement.
wall, or its special name.
Yeah, you don't have to say cyclorama.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, raise your right hand. 3. All opposed? Raise your right hand. 3.
Doesn't pass. Has to be majority.
So, very good. Item 5.2. Approval of the superintendent's recommendation for mask mandate, as we've seen Lauren's narrative here.
Should
We'll
all-
touch base on it.
Yeah, you all have my narrative in front of you. And so, after considerable reflection, I guess is a good term for it, but put a lot of thought into this, as you guys know. It will be my recommendation to pivot to a mask optional for all students grade 9 through 12 and staff at Tonganoxie High School starting Wednesday, November 10th. Part of my rationale is those students and staff, of course, grades 9 to 12 already have the opportunity to be vaccinated if the parents so choose. As you all know here, the school district has been very diligent and been following the current COVID positive case trends and quarantine case trends since August 2021. My recommendation for the USD 464 Board of Education to use the following information as rationale. Our positivity rate at Tonganoxie High School has been extremely low the past 8 weeks and has shown that steady trend to stay low. Nearly all positive cases now are household contacts. USD 464 does use the stay and learn in place at all Tonganoxie grade level buildings currently. I strongly would reiterate that if our total quarantine COVID numbers at Tonganoxie High School reach 4% cases or equal to approximately 25 students, we would pivot back to mask mandated indoors for all students, staff, and guests based on the superintendent's recommendation. When we hit the threshold of less than 4% of 25 students for 2 consecutive weeks, we would pivot back to mask optional indoors for all students, staff, and guests. And I've listed a few other items there that you can read. We know that the wearing of the mask does cause some emotional interruptions that we're aware of. And I just feel personally at some point there's something to be said about the normalcy in life. When is the right time to go back to mask optional? I don't have the exact answer, but this is my best effort, I guess, at this time. I think COVID is not going away. I mean, it's, in some variant, it probably will be here for a long time. A lot of school districts are now starting to pivot to mask optional. They're in the news. We've all heard that. School districts in Kansas City area are starting to pivot. DeSoto has pivoted. Ottawa has pivoted. We know that. And the major rationale behind all their pivot is based on low COVID numbers. So at this time, I also want to make sure that it's known that it will also be my recommendation that we take a very hard look at our COVID trends at the December 21 Board of Education meeting for those students and staff grades pre-K-8. By December 13th, 2021, there is a strong possibility that all students ages 6 to 11 will have the opportunity to be vaccinated if the parents so choose. At that point, the USD 464 Board of Education in December will review our entire COVID policy. So my recommendation at this point is for all 9-12 students to be mask optional.
Any discussion, questions?
I just got a text that, I don't know if it matters, but Baser just passed that they are a mask option.
Yeah, that doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's a school in the same county.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing is the trends for the county numbers, right? I mean, the positivity rate, the curve, this last curve that peaked and went down was almost identical to the previous one. I mean, the shape of it just was a little bit smaller. And when we started the school year, we were clearly in the red with regards to, it was like, I don't know if it was 500. It was high. Not quite as high as it was in the previous one. But, I mean, I think we're really trending down into, we're in the yellow now for that. And the last time we got into the green for about several weeks, not months, right at that border of green. So I think the risk is considerably lower now than even it was 60 days ago. I didn't mean to jump in there. Sorry if I.
What?
I'm sorry. I said it just wasn't to me. It's like I do prioritize the Leavenworth County schools because they have similar county health recommendations and stuff, but I don't. And I said it like that. I didn't mean it to come across like that, but it to me, it's like I want to make our own decisions based upon our own needs and requirements, and not appear as if we're doing it just because anybody else is doing it, or like, you understand what I'm saying?
I wasn't upset. We can agree to disagree. I'm
No,
fine.
yeah, I don't know that we
It's
are.
fine.
But yeah,
One thing that as far as pre-K through 8th, one thing that we may consider is allowing the kids to go mask optional when they're in their classroom sitting at their desk, just like if you're in a restaurant sitting at a table. And the reason, I think they go to lunch and they sit at the table without their masks. So then in their classroom, because I was at the school today, or both schools, the elementary and the middle school, and all of the classrooms in the elementary school are set up in, at the most, there's 4 desks together. So it's, like a table at a restaurant. And from what I heard from some teachers, they feel like the masks, they do inhibit learning a little bit because they can't, see their masks moving and whatever. Everyone knows, we've heard enough about masks, so everyone knows why that would be a benefit for instructional learning, but it just, I think that if you're in the hallways during passing periods or whatever, you would have to wear a mask. But if you're sitting at your desk in your classroom, then it could be mask optional. That would be a consideration to think about, maybe.
And my whole rationale was based on the fact that we know that starting today, I think in Leavenworth County, that kids ages 6 to 11 could start having vaccinations if parents so choose. And so I'm just trying to play it as safe as I possibly can. And I know that we want to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We want to see that if these trends at the high school stay low, then why wouldn't we try that at the elementary and middle school moving into December? That's how I look at it. And so if there's just some patience, we may get there.
From a time frame, you're only talking about, what, a few weeks till the next board meeting?
It's December 13th.
Oh, it is pretty wrong.
Yeah, it's another week past. But anyway, there's Thanksgiving break, and then you come right back into, second week of December. I'm not even saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying, I think this is.
it sounds like the vaccination, the ability for people who choose to get it, they'll have that opportunity for that age group, and then
Right.
at that point in time, people have made their.
They do or they don't. That's the choice.
Lauren, on your third bullet point here, you say that we would pivot back to mask mandated at the superintendent's recommendation. Your intent would be that if we cross over that threshold, that it would be an immediate flip back to.
Yeah, I would communicate with the board, just like I did the last time, what the intent are, where we're at, include feedback from all board members, sort of what happened back in August. That helped me to make those decisions. Yeah, so I don't think we need to call a special board meeting to do that, unless that's so desired by the board. But otherwise, I think we would just make that decision, yes.
It's pretty black and white.
Yeah, black and white.
That's clear here.
But I would certainly take input from board members as we saw the trends, if they were to move upward.
Well, and the percentage is consistent with to what the quarantine numbers were when we went back to mask, when we started the year mask optional.
Correct.
And didn't have any runaway scenario of any kind.
I want to say one thing too. The reason I'm recommending starting on Wednesday is to give the staff time. We're going to have some high school staff that want a little time for social distancing arrangements, maybe some safety features that they would feel a lot more comfortable with. I just didn't want to spring it on them tomorrow morning. It also gives, maybe some parents a chance to talk to their students about what their planning to do? Is it gonna be mask optional or, you know, what, maybe they're already having those discussions, but I think it was requested by, members of TEA that they just have a day to get ready.
Okay, so they are on board with
Oh,
that
yeah.
preparation day,
Yeah,
okay.
yes, that was part of the discussion we had a couple of weeks ago.
Well,
All right, thank
I
you.
would entertain a motion for Lauren's recommendation.
I make a motion to approve item 5.2, approval of the superintendent's recommendation for mask mandate.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous decision, Audrey? With that brings executive session.
Can I please ask for clarification on the vote for 5.1A, the green room?
It was tied 3-3.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
With that brings us executive session. To my knowledge, there's no need for executive session. Any general board discussion this time?
I do have a question for you, Chris. I don't know that you stated the reason for, it's just purely for curiosity, on the approval of the East Gym renovation, the vote against. I'd just be interested if you wanted to share your thoughts on that, because you always have.
I just think that there's potentially bigger needs, to Kaya's point, the
Yeah.
CTE programs. I think if we get in a pattern, spin, we could get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah.
I think we've got to be focused on finishing and delivering a project that we said we would to the community.
Oh,
That's
I
my-
appreciate that.
So with
This-
that,
I have
go ahead.
I have a random thing. Speaking of spending money, I have another idea. Okay, so I think in the district there's only one person that we have that mans a crosswalk, and I think it's over here by the middle school. And that person stands out there in all kinds of weather. Like the other day, it was freezing cold and raining for 2 days. Well, actually for 2 days in a row. And they were standing out there like freezing cold, and I felt horrible. So, I was wondering if we could talk about the possibility or the options of adding some type of, little
The booth.
booth
Well,
for that person
typically
to
when the weather
stand.
gets bad, what they'll do is they'll sit in their vehicle, and they have the heater on. They just back up there and,
Yeah.
Yeah, but then are we paying their gas? Like, I mean, it's not. It's going up. What?
I said it's going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I know,
I'm not opposed to helping them. I just don't, I haven't talked to the crosswalk person, but they typically are sitting in their car.
Well, okay.
They're-
Well, maybe somebody could investigate that
Yeah.
and talk to the crosswalk people.
You could get
Like,
them-
even putting your car, are they comfortable backing their car in there?
Yeah,
And are they,
yeah.
is it,
I-
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I think it's-
absolutely. I've wondered about it. Let me do a little work on that. Yes, they usually back up, right? There's a spot, where it's unobstructed. And they have a good view down the sidewalk of kids coming. So they'll sit in their cars until they see, they're not just standing up for the whole time.
Right.
Generally they're in there listening.
Yeah.
To the.
But I mean, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then I'm pretty sure that their compensation doesn't pay for them running their
I think there's some-
car for,
Okay.
what?
No, I will look into it. I think
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
they're probably running their car.
I
Yeah,
bet they are.
I mean-
I would be.
right. Anyway,
Yeah.
if you could look into
I
that, it
will.
just made me feel
Huh?
bad.
No, that's good. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about in that, when we had that one session, was adding an academic agenda item to to talk about just, focus on academics. I know you cover it a lot in your superintendent's or your assistant superintendent's report. I didn't know if anything had happened with that, or if there's been like a decision not to do that, because I like that when we talked about it. But I
What
just
we've been
didn't-
trying to do is, when we bring in some of the guests
Yeah,
to hit on that, I mean, as far as the data, I mean, that's just something that I'll defer to
Yeah,
Tanya,
and
what-
we talked about, do we bring some more data this meeting, or do we talk about the,
we were gonna do
Early
the math
release.
data or something. Or what-
well,
we talked-
we were looking at a schedule, but I don't know, we were trying to look at what data we had available, and it just, we just weren't quite ready.
Maybe instead of making an agenda item for here, maybe a more consistent board packet around some of those metrics, and then we could digest it, bring questions, and then that way you wouldn't be blindsided, and we wouldn't necessarily spend time here if there wasn't something meaningful to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not falling off our radar.
No,
At all.
and we opted this time to bring the early release information to help us better,
Yeah,
use
because
our
I mean, we
data.
had, because did we ever talk about because we talked about the panorama, did we ever review the map data?
Well-
Because that was the intent, was to cover the panorama first, and then the map
Right,
data,
and
and I don't
it's-
think we ever,
Well, it's growth data, so
Growth data,
our
yeah.
high school just started this year. So they
Yeah.
only have one, they can't show growth yet because they haven't taken a second one.
okay.
So we were debating, do we look at just their initial data, but
Don't you have 8th grade and 9th grade, so you at least have
Well,
that transition?
some, but the math that we opted to take was initially, we wanted to go with the course-specific data, but that does not allow for showing growth. So in our discussion after looking at it, we decided this year we're gonna finish out doing this course-specific, but next year we'll go back to the other one to show the growth.
So what's the map data I got with my kids' report cards?
Oh, you got data, but it's not, I mean, in the ELA, you could probably show some growth, but the math, I mean, it will just show some scores, but it won't show a growth. It's different. It's a course specific, the math is the course specific.
Okay. I do think that came out, I don't know if it went to other than high school, but
No.
for an explanation what that would have been nice, even though I know about map data, most people don't, and it just came with a bunch of graphs. And so it would be nice to actually provide parents with like an explanation of what you should be
Yes.
looking at and how
Yes.
you understand it. And I know you can get that out of that too. There is an
Yes.
explanation
Yes.
that goes along with that.
Well, they panicked and thought they had to send it home, so they threw it all in the mail before talking to us, and this was their first time giving it, so they just kind of panic and send
But
it
it
out.
showed, I saw clear back for both of my kids, so if it was the first time, it showed every year though.
Yes, but it's just different for high school. Like if you're looking at your sophomores, juniors, seniors, they wouldn't have any data except for back in
Well, I mean,
8th grade.
for me, it's like, yeah, you don't have some of that historical, but it is a data point to then review and say, well, this data point is showing us where we're starting from, and then this is what our targets are and our growth target, because it'll give you growth targets.
Yes, and we discussed it with the high school. It just didn't.
And
It
the other
didn't
thing
fit.
is, it's not just high school, it's also the other grades too.
Right,
so,
but they asked that we wait so that they could show growth. They wanted to have a chance to do 2 tests so they could show a growth over
Well,
time.
but how much time delay does it have for us to just have a discussion about that? I mean, is that, because when's that next test happen?
Well, for them, it would be in the spring.
Yeah, I mean, I would,
Yeah,
I would like to add something before that.
we're still working on when to bring what data.
Okay. Yeah, it was said prior to even the panorama one that the plan was to do this in this order. And I was just
Yes, we
surprised
didn't
we
have
just
specific dates though on when, we're still working that out.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned.